Blessings! Appointed Times Ministry welcomes you. We want you to join us as we unveil Bible prophecy through current world events. Jesus warned how the world would look before he returned. He warned that chaos, destruction, insecurity, and peril would become the new norm. Everything in the world seems to be falling apart. But in reality, it's that everything's falling right into place. The times and the seasons are ripe for the gathering of believers. Jesus is coming soon for his bride. We must stand firm in the faith so that when he returns, he can find us dressed and in our right mind ready to meet him. Jesus said, "And you will hear of wars and threats of wars. But don't panic. Yes, these things must take place, but the end won't follow immediately. Nation will go to war against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines, pestilences, and earthquakes in many parts of the world. But all this is only the first of the birth pains, with more to come."
Fox News Earth, the IDF launching a major operation in the West Bank. This happened overnight, where there are fears that Iran could be funding and planning future attacks against the Jewish state. Chief foreign correspondent Trey Yingst is live in southern Israel. Trey.
Yeah, hey, Brian, good morning. Overnight, Israeli forces launched a large-scale raid in the West Bank. The operation targeting the cities of Tubas and Jenin, going after militant cells there. We do know that local health officials say 9 Palestinians were killed so far during the operation. Video shows troops driving into Palestinian-controlled areas. The movement comes after Israel conducted a drone strike earlier this week in the city of Tulkarm, killing a Hamas militant who was released as part of the November ceasefire deal. There is growing concern that Iran is funding and training cells in the West Bank that could launch suicide attacks against Israel as the conflict develops on the ground. This comes as we are learning more about the condition of the Bedouin hostage who was rescued yesterday from Gaza by Israeli special forces. Video released overnight showed the 52-year-old man being loaded into an Israeli helicopter before being transported to the hospital. Doctors say he may go home today and be reunited with his family. After his release, he received a phone call from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu welcoming him home. Inside Gaza, Israel continues to expand its operations in the central part of the Strip, launching fresh airstrikes there and in the south. Palestinian civilians are now moving into a rapidly shrinking humanitarian zone, while the medical facilities in Gaza remained overworked and overwhelmed. Now, working groups do continue to hammer out the details of a possible ceasefire agreement. They met earlier this week in Cairo and have now shifted their meetings to Doha.
Ukraine's president said for the first time that his country's Air Force used American-made F-16 fighter jets to intercept a barrage of Russian missiles and drones in recent days. On Tuesday, Russia launched a massive strike on Ukraine's energy grid.
The Russians continue to try to destroy Ukrainian critical infrastructure, and since March, they've focused especially on Ukrainian electricity production capacity and have really devastated that capacity.
2 days of relentless bombing saw Russia deploy more than 100 missiles and a similar number of drones across Ukraine, killing 7 and injuring more than a dozen. It was one of Moscow's biggest attacks since war started 30 months ago. President Zelensky continuing to push the Biden administration to give his forces the military capability to strike Russia back.
Each of these strikes repeatedly brings us back to the task of long-range capabilities, the need to provide our defense forces with enough long-range weapons that we can destroy terrorists exactly in the areas of their strikes.
The pounding coming at a key moment in the war, as Ukraine now holds nearly 500 miles of territory in Russia's western Kursk region, following a daring cross-border assault a month ago. The unexpected move rocked the Kremlin. It's the first time Russia has faced an invasion of its territory since World War II. Kyiv says it has captured nearly 600 Russian soldiers and more than 100 settlements in the military incursion.
It initially made significant gains, although in the past few days it's sort of stabilized as Russia has flowed forces from other parts of Ukraine to that area.
A top Ukrainian commander claiming Moscow has diverted nearly 30,000 troops from its operations in the east to try and defend Kursk. Meanwhile, 150 miles south of Kursk, Ukrainian forces are also reportedly attempting to break through Russian lines in Belgorod. Ukraine has targeted the border region with multiple airstrikes, forcing Russians to evacuate. In the east, fighting continues to rage around the strategic city of Pokrovsk, which serves as Ukraine's main defensive stronghold and key logistics hub in the Donetsk region. Residents there have been packing up and leaving as fears grow of a major Russian assault on the city.
But we do begin with the summer scorcher in this unofficial last week of the season. Record-breaking temperatures are across the U.S. This as severe storms move through the I-95 corridor. Ginger, of course, is tracking it all for us.
Yes.
Good morning, Ginger.
Hey, good morning to everyone. So Chicago had their hottest day of the year, 99. That broke a daily record, and several daily records were tied or broken from Mississippi to Missouri, Iowa, Kentucky. We had a lot of them. And we can expect more of this because as our climate warms, we will see and already are seeing record high temperatures twice as often as we see record lows. This morning, 55 million Americans under heat alerts, sweating it out in near triple-digit temps.
Thick and humid all.
Volunteers in Chicago passing out water as the city's heat index rocketed to 115.
Thrill of a lifesaver to see them passing out energy.
People flocking to Chicago's lakefront to cool down.
It's really hard to kind of just breathe and grasp air. Not something we're used to in Chicago.
Schools without air conditioning releasing students early from Chicago to Detroit.
It gets real uncomfortable real quick.
Some children reporting difficulty paying attention, even breathing.
It's just extra taxing and tiring, just day-to-day things take a lot longer when it's this hot.
The blazing heat helping to fuel severe thunderstorms. In Wisconsin, watch as this tree comes crashing down. That bicyclist, no time to brake, ending up right in the branches. Prolific lightning in the cells around Chicago. More than 400,000 customers at peak in Michigan losing power. There are heat alerts from St. Louis to Cincinnati, excessive heat warning that includes Camden, Trenton, New Jersey, and Philadelphia there. So you see Washington, D.C. even could feel like 105. They could break a record today, and they're not alone. More records will be broken even after the front starts to kind of clear things out in the Northeast and Great Lakes. Cincinnati goes back up to 96. That could be a record on Friday. Raleigh and Nashville both have the next couple of days with records. But if you are the person who loves the fresh fall air, I have good news. A lot of folks all the way from the plains back in Texas over to the Northeast next week when most of the kids here start school will feel like it, feel much more like fall.
Yes. Philadelphia police are investigating a bizarre case of vehicle vandalism in Center City. A suspect targeting various cars along 10th and Spruce Streets, causing damage and destruction. And a neighborhood is now outraged. Action News reporter Brianna Gallagher live along Spruce Street with more on what happened and the search for the vandal. Brianna.
Yeah, Rick, as you mentioned, a handful of cars were vandalized on Spruce Street this afternoon. This is one of them right here behind me. You can see a handicap tag just hanging in the front mirror. As you see, the windshield is kicked in. There are glass fragments everywhere, but luckily there were some witnesses who could help piece what happened exactly here this afternoon.
Stepped up on the first car, jumped on the hood, and then two legs jumped on the windshield.
Smashed car windows and broken glass is the aftermath of a vehicle vandalism spree along Spruce Street this afternoon.
The front of my SUV, the whole vehicle was stomped in. The gentleman got on top of my car in the video and stomped his right or left foot to smash in my windshield.
Windshield looks pretty busted in. I have no idea how managed to do that much damage, but he did.
Several cars were hit between 9th and 11th Streets. Some had only parked their car just minutes before this happened.
I had parked maybe not even 10 minutes, and then I came back to my car and saw that it had been vandalized.
There's footprints all over my car. It looks like it was really just jumped on. The top of my roof is dented in. My windshield is smashed. It's not drivable.
Witnesses told police it happened really fast and were able to capture some of it on video.
Stop, I'll fix it up.
It was loud, like the smashing of the windshield, and his like yelling was pretty loud.
One of the victims says this wasn't the first time his car had been vandalized. Witnesses say when the suspect was done, he just leisurely walked away.
Considering this is the second time this year something like this has happened, at this point I just shrug my shoulders.
Yeah, I mean, there's like weird people in Philly all the time, but it was just so random, like no motivation, just he was having a day, I guess.
We're here tonight at 10. A woman is sharing her story about a very eventful night. She was hit by a stray bullet while laying in bed inside of her home. And surveillance video shows the moments leading up to the terrifying incident. Action News reporter Caroline Goggin following these details for us tonight. And you had a chance to speak to this person, Caroline.
Yeah, Shari, I had a chance to speak with that woman tonight. She has lived in that home on that street for the past 24 years. She never expected something like this would happen. And tonight, as the suspect awaits his day in court, police tell us that this investigation is active and ongoing. A single shot has shaken this neighborhood in Gloucester City. This video shows a couple arguing outside their home on the 600 block of Hunter Street just before 11 o'clock last night. As the woman heads to her car, the man fires a gun. The bullet traveled to a second-floor window of the home across the street, where Deborah Strang was in bed.
I sat up and I heard bang. My husband come running from his room. He says, "Did you hear that?"
Strang immediately realized her arm was bleeding and that a bullet had broken her window, hitting her pillows and mattress before ricocheting off the TV and hitting her.
The blood's pouring and I took my hand away, and when I did, the bullet fell on the floor. And my husband picks it up, he says, "You've been shot."
The 67-year-old was rushed to Cooper University Hospital, where she was stitched up and discharged early this morning. Meantime, the Camden County Prosecutor's Office says the man who fired the shot was arrested. 51-year-old Francisco Griffin now faces weapons charges, as well as a charge of aggravated assault and criminal mischief. Strang's hope for her neighbor?
Not getting out and not getting away with it.
She says police have been called to his home for issues in the past, but this time she found herself caught in the crossfire.
If I had not lifted my head up when I had, that bullet would have hit me in the head. There is no doubt about that. I am very fortunate that I am still alive.
All throughout time, acts of hatred and anger have caused so many heartless atrocities in this world. People inflamed by rage, violence, greed, pride, covetousness, and the like have fueled their hearts to commit evil acts against one another. For this reason is why God gave his Son as a ransom for the sins of the world. God is willing and able to forgive our trespasses because of what Jesus did on the cross. But remember, his grace and mercy isn't a free license to sin. God will repay every person's deeds, hidden or unhidden, according to what they deserve. Jeremiah 17:9-10 says, "The heart is deceitful above all things and beyond cure. Who can understand it? I, the Lord, search the heart and examine the mind, to reward each person according to their conduct, according to what their deeds deserve. When we sin, we must come before God's throne of grace and ask for forgiveness and mercy. For his sacrifice on the cross wasn't for us to continue in sin, but to redeem us from it." Hebrews 4:14-16 says, "Let's hold on to the confession, since we have a great high priest who passed through the heavens, who is Jesus, God's Son. Because we don't have a high priest who can't sympathize with our weaknesses, but instead one who was tempted in every way that we are, except without sin. Finally, let's draw near to the throne of favor with confidence, so that we can receive mercy and find grace when we need help." Time is running out. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. No man can come to the Father except through Christ. We don't know when our appointed time to leave this earth will be. Keep yourselves ready to see the Lord at all times. Put on the full armor of God daily and fight the good fight. Thank you so much for tuning in. Blessings to you and your families.